Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is an extras episode. This is kind of an out of sequence release where we just kind of have something cool that's not directly related to Infinity, but we want to check out and kind of showcase a little bit. So, this doesn't affect our regular cadence, so you'll still be getting your usual Infinity related content at the same rate, but we have a cyberpunk inspired comic that is out on Kickstarter right now called Breeze. And with us is our good friend Mike Ortiz, one of the writers. Say hello, Mike.
Hi.
And yeah, it looked like a really cool concept. I went through and I started watching some of your other Dawnward shorts that were really cool, and that was a lot of fun. And yeah, this seems really neat. So, for people who aren't familiar, do you want to talk about your background a little bit before we kind of dive into Dawnward related stuff?
Sure. So hi, I'm Mike Ortiz. Uh, Way back in the day, I was one of the workhorses in the Los Angeles region. I then became a workhorse in the Denver region, and at one point, I was the only workhorse in the South Island of New Zealand. I've been Infinity for quite a long time. Started back in N2, right when this awesome book called Human Sphere came out.
Yeah.
We all argued about how fire teams worked and how Aleph was broken.
What? No.
Well, it's hard when everybody's starting the game and someone's like, "I have 2 Fusiliers, and what are your basic infantry? These are Myrmidons, and you're all dead." This is BS.
Not wrong.
What's ODD?
This was before Thorkatai for our
yes
newer listeners. Myrmidons were the only low tier troop.
So I've been playing Infinity for quite a long time. It's always one of those games that it doesn't matter how much it kind of might drift to the back burner for me. CB always has a way of kind of pulling me back in, whether that's from just a new rule set or just awesome models. The art is one of the big things that always drew me into the game.
Absolutely.
And so beyond that, I have a background working in film and television. I went to Temple for film school, then went out to, glorious California to try and make my fame and fortune. And there I discovered that Hollywood kind of sucks. But along the way, I did work on some amazing movies. You may have heard of them. Law Abiding Citizen. Yeah, people enjoy that one. This great movie called Transformers 2. Yep, it's great. And then this cinematic opus called The Last Airbender. I don't know, it might be too artsy for some of you, but it's a special film. Yeah,
Excellent.
But yeah, so now I am in the Colorado area, living life, rolling some dice, and kind of pursuing a passion that I've always had, which is kind of a pseudo post-apoc, dystopian cyberpunk world that I created, and that's where the comic Breeze is set in. And we kind of collectively call the setting that it all takes place as Downward. So yeah.
Oh, that was my bad then. I thought it was Dawnward.
I'm sorry, it is Dawnward. You're right. Yep.
Well,
good me.
Jeez, Mike.
Good me. I'm screwing up vowels every day of the week.
I know the first short was called Downward.
Yeah, as I had made a mention, the naming conventions kind of started as a joke, and then they stuck, and then we got stuck. So, yep.
Yeah, which is very cool. I will make sure to link the Dawnward Universe channel because there's some pretty sweet short movies there. They're pretty fun. I liked it.
Yeah, we did close to 10 short films over the course of 10 years. So yeah, I'd say about 10, with varying degrees of success and varying degrees of accolades, or whatever you want to call it. Downward, I know those words, it's fun. Downward was the first. And it did do very well, and it did do very well in the festival circuit. People really liked it. It won awards and got us a lot of meetings. And they all went essentially nowhere. Still remember one meeting with Warner Brothers where they were all very excited, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then one of the executives turned to me and said, well, we love it. Can you put zombies in it? I was like, is that because Walking Dead is on television right now and it's really big? And they're like, yeah. I was like, cool. So
People love zombies.
Yep. And I said the most important thing of my life. Absolutely, I can put zombies in it, sir.
And here we are.
But yeah. So that's a little bit of the background on all that.
Very cool.
So yeah, the Hollywood experience seems very interesting with the kind of the struggle between the art and then like the wants of the studio, and doesn't sound like it really took off between those couple of things, huh?
No. I mean, I definitely at some points thought, rubbing my nipples going, I've made it. I'm important. Look at these meetings, these people. I've been taken out to P.F. Chang's. And at the end of the day, nothing ever. There was some small steps forward. There were some things that were cool. 2016, one of the short films, Ascendance, which is on our YouTube channel. We actually shot over in New Zealand. We had made some contacts over there, and we flew out with some Americans, and we worked with local Kiwis, and yeah, we made a movie like 6,000 miles away, and that was a pretty awesome experience.
Yeah.
But in a similar way to like what happened to Peter Jackson when he made The Lord of the Rings, it's like stunning what happens when you go to just call it small town New Zealand, and you're going to make a film. Is that people just you're amazed by how friendly and kind they are. One point we were having some armor was chipping. It was red, and we couldn't. I think it was too cold. The paint wouldn't set. We were desperate for something, and I sent a runner up to a store. There was nothing around. There was a gas station, maybe 20 minutes away. Drive there, see if you can find anything, and come back. And he went. He couldn't, and the girl behind the counter was like, what are you doing? What are you looking for? And he was like, well, and he explained, and she was like, oh my god, wait here, I have my nail polish. And she gave him her own red nail polish to come back to set. And so we're sitting there trying to touch up the plates on this armor in between takes. And even with that, some of the hilarious stories are like trying to touch up something. I think it was the same armor between takes. And I'm trying to explain to this guy how to do it. And he's like dry brushing. And I was like, yeah. And as a joke, I was like, it's like you're painting a blood angel. And he was like, I play White Scars. I was like, did we just become friends?
Fantastic.
Bitter enemies.
And then I got him to play Infinity. So I mean, that was the beautiful. That's the beautiful.
There's the
story.
win.
Better.
He started JSA.
Oh, so we can paint more red and white.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, so the Hollywood fairy tale is not a real thing in most regards.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of pull between, people wanting ventures to be successful, and therefore they must be like other things that were previously successful, but then you can't, if you take that to the extreme, you can't make new things, and people get tired of having the same things over and over anyway. So it's kind of, you kind of have to take a chance at some point.
I was like, I don't see any of that happening today. Remakes and sequels aren't a thing. Ow.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's. I mean, I guess it's pretty much any sort of media-based industry. Like video games are a lot like that too.
Yeah,
a lot of that going on.
I get so tired of video games because I love them, but it's a thing. Like I start up a video game and I get really bored really fast because I've played this game before, like 30, 40 times.
Mhm.
This one just has a newer coat of paint on it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. That is fair. I think at least video games, though, have the wherewithal to try different things, even if it is a new coat
Mhm.
of paint. I'm still
Sure.
waiting for still waiting for a lot of other media to realize that and at least
Yeah.
give it a try.
Sure.
Well, I think like the indie video game scene is like super interesting. Where
Mhm.
like I don't play a ton of them, but every now and then like one pops up and it looks interesting and I try it and it's like just something completely wildly different. And it's just because people were like, "Oh yeah, I have an idea and it's going to be small scale, but I'm going to go for it and do it." And then like sometimes it catches on.
Yeah, but I think you just hit the nail on the head there when you talked about the indie scene.
Mhm.
There's a reason like indie film back in the 90s became this like almost underground like cool movement. Things like Clerks and stuff like that like blew
Oh.
people away because it was so different. It was fresh. It was new. And we're kind of coming back to that again. And I think
Mhm.
tying it back to where this all started, comics is a similar way. A lot of metrics and and sales brackets are showing that like major publishers aren't selling the same way they were anymore. And readers are hungry for either. I mean, honestly, it's like manga is outselling everything, but people are hungry for indie comics because they want to see
Yeah.
something different and new and fresh. And so that's kind of a little bit of the drive behind this is to try and give people something fun, something new, give them another adventure that they can enjoy. Um, in the pursuit of something good to pass the time with.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think like there's a lot of opportunity in that specifically with comics now with like Diamond basically going away and
Mhm.
all the companies doing more direct distribution with the shops, and so there's not this like stranglehold that Diamond had
Right.
on that industry, and there's
Yeah.
opportunity to kind of get your stuff out there a little bit more in a different way than was possible for the last 30 years.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it's fair. It's changing so I don't want to say rapidly, but it is changing rapidly.
Hmm.
It's very interesting. I wish I could see what things are going to look like in like 10 years because I think it's going to be nothing like what we're used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely a desire for that. And so just takes some people, actually putting in the effort and making that leap to make it happen. But, understandably, that can be a scary thing,
Hmm.
not knowing
Oh,
how
sure.
it's going to turn out.
Sure, of course. But, as they all say, it's better to have tried and failed than to never tried at all.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about your role in Breeze and what that looks like for you?
Sure. So yeah, I'm the head writer, if you will. So all the scripts have come through me, the ideas have come through me. They've passed through the hands of some other people. We want to make sure that you always want to make sure you have somebody else kind of go through it, even if it's just for touch ups.
Hmm.
The way I kind of describe a lot of ideas to people is it's kind of like this kid that has stayed at home way too long and has no friends. And then they
Hmm.
go out and they meet people and they're like, hey, you're kind of odd and I don't quite get you. So you want to make sure your ideas, your stories are more
Hmm.
properly socialized
Sure, sure.
before you release them to the world.
Makes sense.
Um, but yeah, so one of the reasons that I originally had talked to you about even doing this was because Breeze started life as a tabletop role playing game that we made back in 2010, the end of 2010.
Mm. Mhm.
I was working for this company some people might know of. It's called Games Workshop. Um,
Yep.
and I was managing a store. And after I closed the store, some people would stay and we would play this game in the store. We had made it. It was based off of was an old D20 system that we had modified. We
Mhm.
had gone to like a local game shop and found a bunch of like used RPG books, and we bought a handful and kind of tore them all apart in terms of like, oh, we like this from this and this from this, and cobbled together this Frankenstein game that we played. We played it for about a year. Then, we all went our separate ways and life went on. But at one point in the heart of the game, people needed models for their characters. And no one could find good
Sure.
models that they liked. They were struggling until somebody suggested this game called Infinity. And so we went to, at this time, the only place you could get them was online, and this is in LA, so you had to go to Orange County to a place called Brookhurst Hobbies, which is a pretty awesome store if it's still around. Huge store. They had like a section in the back. And we all went one day on like a big pilgrimage, and people picked out their characters. Somebody got the Sofotech, somebody got
Nice, yeah.
Kusanagi, somebody got an Hasura. I know I bought the Huck Tao, the original one. I still have him sitting in a case somewhere, and he was always like generic. You kick in the door and there's generic bad cyborg, and I was like Huck Tao.
Yep.
But yeah,
There
so
you go.
like as the RPG petered out, I think I found one of the books in a store. I looked through it and was just like, holy crap, this is awesome. We should play this game that we bought models for.
Right. Works out.
And so yeah, like that's how we all got into Infinity, was through Breeze.
Nice.
So yeah, so that's kind of why I was like, yeah, this is kind of fun, Devin. Like I should bring this up to you because it's kind of hilarious. It comes full circle in a weird way.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So I will also say right now we're working on some STLs for Breeze.
Cool.
The theory is maybe in the not too distant future we will actually create and polish an RPG system and kind of send it out into the world, and people can take characters from the comic and actually use them, or might come pre-built within the book or whatever, if in case you wanted to play the adventure of the comic itself. So
Sure.
yeah, so it might truly come full circle.
Right. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
So,
but yeah, and I can definitely see. I don't know how big a hand you have in the art style or the art itself, but I can definitely see kind of some resemblance as far as Infinity goes. Like, it's definitely distinct, but like maybe it's just because I've been around so much of the Infinity art.
sure.
But yeah, it definitely kind of reminds me of it a bit.
I mean, it's kind of funny you say that. I actually,
yeah, that very much so.
Actually, at one point, inadvertently, not even intentionally, met an artist, liked his work, hit him up, and I was like, "Hey, do you have some examples of your work that you can kind of show me?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he sent me McMurra, Toa Drop Trooper, and the Anaconda.
Sure,
There's a gentleman by the name of Chuck Pierce, I think is his name.
Okay.
I was like, holy crap, this is you? I was like, you did the Anaconda? Everybody knows the Anaconda piece. It's pretty famous. Pretty sure Carlos has it in his office. But yeah, so so I hired him for some art. It's an example of his stuff right there. So obviously very Infinity in terms of that, because he's a guy that actually did artwork for Infinity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
But I mean, it is varied in terms of, because some of it has been developed over time. So
sure.
Not all of it is going to be quite the same aesthetic or vibe as Infinity.
Right.
Because it kind of depends some on the era of when it was produced. But yeah, like Infinity it is set in a cyberpunk world. Infinity is intergalactic, so we're going through wormholes, we're settling colonies, we're terraforming. This is all set on one planet. And Breeze itself only takes place inside of one city. So in this world, after the apocalypse, essentially, as humanity tried to rebuild from the ashes, a lot of power was consolidated amongst a select group of like mega corporations, and each of them built their own little mini kingdom, which is like a city state. And the kind of the concept is, the outside world is garbage. It's scary and it's full of mutants and insane ancient robots and radiation, and you don't want to go out there, so you better stay within our walls. But if you want to stay within our walls, you better work for us.
Yep. And zombies, right?
Well, of course, there has to be. Um, but yeah, so within the confines of that, if you want to have any sort of life, you're working for one of these corporations more likely. But there's another path that people can take, and that is to become a freelancer, which is kind of like a violent jack of all trades. These are mercenaries, bounty hunters, assassins, retrievers, data thieves. They work outside of the system, and it's like a chance for someone to have not only an adventure, but like fame and fortune. Because they become the celebrities to all the other people that are working for the corporations. You might work your horrible 9 to 5 in whatever, awful experience that the company gives you, and then you go home and you log on, and you get to live out your fantasies through these people who do kick in doors and dual wield pistols and stuff you see in a movie.
Sure.
And the corporations aren't dumb. They see this as opportunities, right? So they're like, oh yeah, we need you to go rob this person or whatever. But at the same time, like esports, you can also monetize these people. So in a way, it's almost like the escape that some people can have from being trapped at the corporation becomes corporation, because now you're responsible for the corporation.
Sure.
So yeah, the story of Breeze is all set in the largest corporate city-state. It's called Babylon. It's a main trading hub for the continent, and it follows a group of freelancers who kind of decide that the best chance they have for that good old fame and fortune is to rob one of these mega corporations. So it's a little bit of their misadventures as they decide that we'll see how this goes.
Gotcha. And as far as Breeze itself goes, is this it sounds like this is kind of a heist type story?
Yeah, so it starts as a heist. It's slated to be 4 issues. We're launching issue number 1 right now, which is slated to be 40 pages. So it starts as a heist, and then it's kind of the fallout from the heist as not only the characters but the readers kind of discover not just what the ramifications of this heist were, but what the heist might really have been about. As is true with a lot of cyberpunk things, it's not always what's on the surface of what you think it is.
Absolutely.
So,
very cool.
Yeah. And yeah, there's cyborg cats, so how can you lose?
Right?
Cats make everything better.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of fun, like looking at some of the panels from the comic book, is that it is probably like, I don't know, 75% black and white, but with a lot of color pops. I think that's really kind of cool. I like that's as a way to, I assume it's to kind of like emphasize certain aspects of a given scene or panel.
So when we were doing
really neat.
when we were doing a lot of the getting the pages done, people asked, they're like, oh, this is really cool. Are you going to color it? And I said, yeah, of course, that's the plan. And then overwhelmingly, the response was people were like, I don't know if you should. Like, these are so good. Like, these are such crisp, like, panels and page, like, and so what we chose to do was to do what you said is like a selective color process. And so we specifically emphasize certain things. So one of the things that we do is we do screens, muzzle flashes, blood, anything overtly technological will get color to it to make it stand out. But not only that, it's also a way that we can denote characters of importance within a scene. So if a character that matters, so if someone has color in a scene somewhere on them, a glowing eye, a headset, a necklace, it's a way that's like a visual cue to the readers that this person stands out. and also it's almost
Sure.
like again, they like stand out in a black and white world.
It's very
Um,
shares a lot of the visual language with like what Frank Miller did with Sin City in that series of comics.
yeah, and I don't even think we intentionally drew from Sin City. It was just one of those things where, when we did this, we're like, oh yeah, that's the closest thing we could think of that had done it. But we just get to kind of do it now more with technology. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of a fun little aspect that we get to play around with.
Yeah, seeing some of these panels, I really like how that looks. I think it's a cool way to get that emphasis without necessarily everything being full color. I mean, I'm sure that it could still look really good if it were full color. I don't know if that would necessarily diminish it, but especially without seeing it for me. But
Yeah,
I do think it's a really nice tool.
I agree. We did do some full color tests, and the pages were nice. But overwhelmingly, people were still like, no, like we like the kind of weird hybridized black and white color thing. So we decided to stick with that.
Well, and sometimes the art, it really has to be a feel on it, and sometimes black and white is just the better option. I think back, so in the mid '90s, there was a comic put out by Neil Gaiman and Alice Cooper called The Last Temptation, and it was initially put out as like 4 issues in color, and it was all right. But then later on, they did a collected version where it's just in black and white, and it's so much better. It's so much cleaner and more crisp and impactful in the artwork than the color versions were.
I mean, I think there's something to be said about black and white, and I think there's been a weird resurgence of interest in it in a lot of mediums. I think about like Fury Road got re-released in black and white. Godzilla -1 got re-released in black and white.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I feel like there's this element where people think the loss of color doesn't diminish the story of these things. If anything, it just kind of enhances the feeling of what you're seeing.
Well, and I grew up with my dad watching like a lot of black and white westerns and war movies from like the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And
I'm right with you.
Yeah, so like I really appreciate a lot of the cinematography around that and how the storytelling works. And like I can't imagine, certain films from that era, like there have been colorized versions of some of them, and they always look awful.
Right, but there's something off about them.
Yeah, but the original black and whites is just so striking in certain scenes and how they tell the story. And so I think, like you said, things come full circle, and I think that there's a lot of people that are seeing opportunity to do things in that high contrast black and white artistic style through multiple mediums.
Yeah, I think that it definitely makes sense to kind of stick with it. I mean, obviously you've had feedback from a bunch of viewers already, but yeah, it's definitely striking. I think it's very distinct in that way.
Feedback is one thing, and it's nice and it's wonderful. We've also had issues where we'll call them focus groups, and then what the focus group came back with ended up not being great in the end, but it is what it is. In this case, though, it seems like everyone we've talked to has enjoyed the style of it, so that's just kind of one of the cool little facets that we're just going to run with because we think it's neat.
That's very good.
Absolutely. And so this is actively on Kickstarter as we speak. And Mike, you want to talk a little bit about what's the Kickstarter for? Why are you using a crowdfunding platform for this? What are some of the benefits for backers? And just kind of a little bit of what that all looks like?
Sure. Yeah, so the comic is basically about done. The Kickstarter
Mhm.
is really because we are trying to fund a small printing run. Um, and a lot of that is because we're trying to do two things. One, we want to gauge interest. We want to see, is this something people like? Is this something to continue with? Should we tell a lot of other stories? Because we can.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is because with a lot of indie comics, the unfortunate things that happen is somebody makes one, and it could be amazing, and they print 1,000 of them, and then they have 1,000 of them that sit in their basement, taking up space.
Yeah.
And it becomes this like drag on everybody, and it becomes this sad thing. So with us doing this
Mhm.
print run, we can gauge how many we need to print.
Sure. Almost as a quasi pre-order sort of
Sure.
thing.
Yep. Absolutely. And then we'll obviously print more than are specifically needed. There's no reason not to. But again, we don't have to be sitting on a massive pile of stock.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and then one of the main things that we're doing with this Kickstarter, other than giving people a chance right from the gate to get their own physical copy of it to jump in, we're offering a original novella. It's going to be a side story to the comic. It's going to be following one of the other characters, so it's like a fun little bit, just for more adventures you get to experience. There's going to
Mhm.
be a Kickstarter only exclusive alternate cover art we had done. Um, it's our Beach-tastic cover.
Yeah. I saw that.
Um, so that's only through the Kickstarter.
Mhm.
Um, so we have some other things that we're offering to people, things like posters, so you can get some of the cover arts printed as posters. People can get specific comic book pages that they like. Is nice like A6 sized posters.
Mhm.
Coupled with that, we're having some little fun little Easter eggs that people can do. One is they can write a personalized message inside the comic itself. So it might be graffiti on the
Fun.
wall or on a computer screen or someone's targeting HUD. It's like, hey, do you want to tell your spouse that you love them, or do you want to just profess to the world how much you enjoy chicken nuggets? Here's your chance. Um,
Right.
we're also offering people the chance to have themselves drawn into the comic. So, are you going to be just some guy on the street walking around? Do you want to be a mercenary goon that's robbing a bank, or do you want to be painted like one of the French girls in the background? So the sky's the limit there. Then the last thing that we're offering, the big exclusive, is we're working right now on a map of the entire city. This is kind of coupled with the hope of doing an RPG for this. And one
Sure.
of the things we're offering people there is a chance to name something in the city itself. So you will get a very large size, almost architect's blueprint of the city map,
Mhm.
with your specific place denoted. And forever and ever, amen, always will be, Sam's Muscly Sandwich Shop, that you named,
Perfect.
um, along with some like a holographic art that we're going to be producing. So, um, yeah. So if we hit our goal, we have a bunch of stretch goals set up. So, well, the first thing that we're working on right now is some stickers. 'Cause Everybody loves some stickers. Um, so there's going to be like a sticker set that people can get. Which is going to
Fun.
be some kind of like chibi art of the characters, some of the company logos. Um, there's like an obnoxious energy drink that the main hacker girl drinks, so we're going to get the sticker for that done. In terms of other stretch goals, we want to do kind of like a digital source book, almost like a lore Bible, so you can crack it open and learn more about different parts of the city and different areas and characters and companies, etc., etc. Um, a lot of us have a film and television background, so we're offering to do like a motion comic for the first issue. We're gonna hire some voice
Okay.
actors, and yeah, we can kind of go through that.
Nice.
We've been working with some cool like synth artists because we really love our little cyberpunk, almost like '80s vibe to things.
Mhm.
Um, so a stretch goal we're considering doing is like a soundtrack for the comic itself. Um,
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and then if everything goes really well, oh yeah, one of the things that we have slated and written and we're actually working on right now is a mini comic, which is another side story, like a 10-page side story that kind of sets up some of the background for one of the antagonists. And then if things go really well, we're sitting on the script right now for issue 2. It's done. We just need to do it. So,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we have the first 4 issues. Issue 2 is fully written. Issue 3 and 4 are outlined.
Hmm.
So, and the arc is slated to be 4 issues. The hope and dream, if miracle wings come down, is to do 4 little arcs that are each 4 issues. So
Gotcha.
each of these
Okay.
arc would be like a different job or adventure or whatever, and they'd be broken down into 4 individual issues that we'd eventually collect into 16 issues as one graphic novel. So yeah,
Hardback.
well, of course, I start strong.
Yeah.
Right. With the beach cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And then, yeah, one of the things that has been asked, and just to make sure people feel aware of this, is the Dawnward universe is big, but the concept of Breeze is that it's a nice, easy entry point for people. One city,
Sure.
small group of characters. There's no one needs to be like, well, where do I start? What's this and that? Like, no, it's very. This is the entry point. Would love to give everyone. And ideally, if things go well, we can expand. We can tell other stories. We could venture outside the city into dusty wastelands, or go north into rolling hills full of mutants and other insanity. There's a lot of fun things that we can do and follow. So,
For sure.
that's a problem for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Prepare. And so one of the things that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier in terms of kind of finding difficulty in creating fresh content, or maybe not creating, but um, being able to kind of stand out with fresh content. What are some of the things that you personally really like about Breeze in terms of something that feels like kind of sets it apart from the genre, or just other kind of neat hooks that you in general think are really interesting?
That's a good question. So one of the things that I like to tell a lot of people is, first and foremost, like, we just want to tell a fun, engaging story. We want people to enjoy themselves and just kind of kick back and have a good time. I think that some people get intimidated by a lot of comics, or where to enter into things, and this is supposed to just be a nice thing you can pick up and just have a good time with. Coupled with that is the fact that cyberpunk in general, while it's one of my favorite genres, is also sometimes a heady or difficult thing for people to kind of jump in on. Luckily, we're in a day and an age where it's a little more accessible than it ever has been. But there's still not a ton of content for it. It's still weirdly this kind of outlier when it comes to science fiction, which is unfortunate because it's just an awesome setting. Whether that is like the really grim, dark, deep, my brain hurts from philosophy level of cyberpunk, or it's just I has cool car and neon lights go boom.
Both of
like
which are valid.
Right, yeah, it all has a great place together. And so we're kind of trying to combine those two together. We're trying to have where you can have these deep, philosophical things about identity and man and machine, and your kind of your place in the world. One of the things we explore in Dawnward itself is like, what is the destiny of humanity? Who has the right to hold it? Especially with how flawed we are. If we could, would we hand it over to someone else for like our own salvation, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah.
And so themes about like freedom and like one of the main things that we're going to explore with this arc of Breeze is kind of the complication of revenge. We love revenge stories because we love that escapism and that catharsis, but at the same time, revenge is a very murky and like not just self-destructive, but just also just riddled concept. And so the end of it, even if you have the best intentions, even if you are the hero, like what have you burned on that path?
Yeah,
And
how
I'm
does
not
it
just
change you? How does it cycle back on itself?
so yeah, so like that's going to be one of the things that kind of gets explored with this one. And the hope is, yeah, each arc we kind of touch upon a different thing. You know, what, like obviously a great thing with Cyberpunk is the definition of humanity. At what point do you stop being a human? You know, if you're so augmented, if you're so cyberized, what are you? You know, if someone shoots you, is that murder? Did someone just, you know, turn off the washing machine?
Yeah, totally.
And you know, and even where like laws don't know how to deal with that.
Right. Yeah.
And like, you know, when you do replace a part of yourself, does that rid you of any element of humanity? Does that devalue you in some way? So yeah, as I said, you know, just a lot of fun.
Right. Absolutely.
But I think that's the joy that we want to try and have, is where you can explore this without making it so dim and depressing that it's like a slog for a reader, or they pick it up and they go, man, I just need to go outside right now because I hate my life.
Sure.
Because I think that is the joy of like combining those two elements of Cyberpunk together, where one is very deep and scintillating and asking, you know, hard philosophical questions, and the other just looks cool because, you know, who doesn't like a cool 80s soundtrack? So something that's kind of cool about the world itself that is at least a little bit different is, in the vein of many of existing science fiction properties, overly thinking machines are illegal. They're considered taboo. Machines should have some connection to humanity. So as a result, things like drones, things akin to that, will be tethered to people. So you would have an implant or some sort of augment that you would clip on, so that you could access this. You know, but if you think about it, the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of drones, and there's a lot of drones that are doing various things, such as 40 drones taking out the garbage or whatever. And so, in a way to kind of escape, you know, the purely robotic, through turning a person almost into a living machine, a living computer, by syncing so many machines to them. And so corporations will hire people who almost their entire job is to basically lie there and operate various machines, and some of them will never even move. They'll just be sustained through, intravenous and things like that. There's concepts where there's, people that have that desire for, not feeling loss when someone passes. So there's this resurrectionist concept where they'll take pictures, videos, biometrics, anything they can of a loved one, and load it into a system, almost like a repository of like, here's all the things I loved about Grandpa. It actually gets synced to this person, this resurrectionist, who will almost in a way become digitally possessed by that inload. So for a moment, they visually and speech-wise, whatever, become your grandpa.
In like a long term, or like for like visits of some kind, or
well, as long as you can pay.
Yeah, I gotcha.
We have the concept where, because again, you can't have, because there's a lot of lacking when it comes to the overall machine. The machine now comes to man, so they'll have, they're brothels basically, where someone either in debt or without their knowledge is going to be put into stasis and have their mind wiped until a customer comes and pays for what they specifically desire, and that's inloaded into that person, that encounter. So it's like the ultimate role playing, because this person that you're interacting with, it isn't make believe to them. It's real. Whatever story you wanted them to be is actually real for that moment before they're put back on ice.
It's pretty crazy.
To the darkness of humanity.
Yeah. And I like that kind of touches back on the humanism aspect as far as the big questions of the setting. It's like if someone can just erase your memories and replace them, are you the same person, or what
What's
does that do
existence?
to you?
Yeah, I think therefore I am no longer applies because you think what somebody bleep blop bloop blopped on a keyboard.
Yep.
Yeah, and now just couple that with a nice dose of classic Judge Dredd violence and a lot of sarcasm, and you got yourself a story.
And then we can see your take on the idea of the cursed earth and the mutants out in the wastelands.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, the mutants, unfortunately for them, even if they were very nice people, they act a lot as a boogeyman for maintaining corporate control, because if you can imagine something that's a scary mutant, and if you could show somebody that's something that's a scary mutant, even if they've never met one, but you said they're out there and they'll eat your babies, people are more likely to surrender everything they can to you to keep them safe within your walls.
Yep.
So
makes sense.
Within Babylon itself, there's various zones and aspects, but the main central hub, the part that's suspended directly over the water, is Babylon proper, and it's almost, for whoever can't see it, I'll give you almost a visual image. It's a little bit of a technological looking Minas Tirith here, straddling a canal, but people will work and dream of one day getting, either the promotion to let them live in there, or that winning lottery ticket that'll let them, either live there or just even spend a weekend. All expenses paid, of course, because the company loves you and appreciates your support.
Yep.
Yeah, and as I said, every city-state is operated by its own company. In this case, Babylon is operated by the Omnicorps, who don't actually make a lot of stuff. They do, but they don't have a huge R&D department. Their main job is they like to steal other people's stuff. So if you're independent and you think you've got a great idea, well, they'll come with a check or a gun or both until they leave with that idea, and then they don't need to pay for R&D.
There you go. That's efficiency.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about the concept is we talked about the mega corporations. We talked about how they have their city-states, how they kind of run everything, how they get to rub their nipples and feel all powerful. But above them, there is actually a race of bioengineered super soldiers who really oversee them, that almost act as like a glorified mafia. They have been created, according to them, mind you, this is their words, to shepherd humanity into a new dawn and to protect humanity from, potentially humanity itself. And so if you do not acquiesce to that vision, you are going to meet either a very large boot or a very large bullet. And so they, as I said, have this almost like mafia stranglehold over the corporations, where they're like, yeah, no, give us all the guns and food and whatever we need because it's for your protection. It'd be terrible if something happened to this place, wouldn't it?
Interesting.
And so they almost have this. I mean, people almost see them almost like some sort of seraph in a way, because they have this image, they have this aura, and they have this authority over everyone that's like human but above human. They might visually resemble, a human, but they are, according to them, the next stage of what humanity should be.
And these are the Dragoons?
These are the Dragoons, yes.
Gotcha.
So, yep. They are also, they're very nice people too. They're just the best.
Yeah. So help everybody out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're they were organized into like familial kind of clans, each clan kind of operating a different area and zone and having a bit of its own cultural identity. Over time, when they got tired of killing humans, they would kill each other. Until eventually only one clan really exists. So, and that clan is the most dogmatic. It's the most like, this is our mission, this is our goal. No one can question it. How dare you even consider like telling me I'm wrong? And so they have this authoritarian just stranglehold on the world, and the companies hate the ever living shit out of them. But
Sure.
they also don't like being torched to the ground.
The eternal struggle.
Kind of talking to some of that, like the questions of freedom and like the destiny of humanity. There's more of that, right? Like you're gonna surrender to the companies, to the corporations. You're gonna surrender to these, tyrannical super soldiers that are basically saying you don't need freedom because if you had freedom, that's how the world burned.
See where freedom got you last time.
I have a point, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, so lore-wise, if this isn't a spoiler, and feel free to tell me if it is, who ended up creating this like super soldier program in the first place?
Well, it is a little bit of a spoiler, but
Fair.
we can just kind of say, at some point during the downfall of humanity, someone or something or some things thought that we might, as a species, be worth saving. And so they set about ensuring we had someone to watch over us. The problem with you when you create anything with a task is, unless you strip away its free will, it doesn't always go the way you want it to, even if you have the best intentions. So there is an overarching conflict behind the scenes that is kind of boiling up, which really ties into kind of the destiny of humanity. Who controls it? Who has the right to control it? Because again, we as humans, we want to know what our future is, and we would like to control it, but there are forces at work here that have more power than we do.
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds pretty sweet. Yeah, it looks really interesting, and I really hope that you guys end up going through the series because it sounds really neat. I'm gonna be picking
Appreciate
up a
that.
copy.
I think right now we're about 70% funded with 2 weeks to go, so we're chugging along. There's no part of us that has delusions of grandeur that we're like, yes, we're the best thing ever. And
Sure,
we're gonna be Trench Crusade.
There's that, I suppose. Yeah.
But we again, like, a lot of this is just because we had a fun thing and we want to kind of share it with the world, and we want people to have a good time and kind of jump along for the adventure.
This is really kind of what the Kickstarter platform and the crowdfunding platforms are for. I like to see something like this that's an indie project getting off the ground, being able to get legs under it because of something like this, as opposed to where I see so many other projects that are essentially a glorified pre-order system for an established company or whatever. So I think this is actually right to the root of what this platform should be used for.
I mean, I appreciate that, Ian. I think a lot of people have kind of lost some sight of that. At least it feels that way a little bit. I remember when you'd start seeing like things like Privateer and even Corvus Belli throwing stuff on Kickstarter, and we've kind of just accepted it now. But when it started, it did feel odd because it used to be like, I'm Uncle Jenny and I'm trying to figure out how to make potato salad. Will you help me? And it's kind of gone away from that. Harking back to Infinity for 1 second, I just pulled up an image for you guys, a panel from a comic, where you can see a little bit of this is a corporate trooper getting ready to roll out, and keeping with some of the original inspiration, of the models, he does have bunny ears on his
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
pano bunny ears. The Appleseed or Shiro Masamune little bunny ears on there. So, and then the funny part to me is that way back when we did sketches, like because we had sketched stuff for the comic, not the comic, sorry, the RPG. I had sent stuff to the artist that we're working with, and we got to the corporate troopers, and he's like, "Yeah, what do they look like?" And I was like, "Well, here's some sketches that we'd done 10 years ago." We kind of talked about some changes, and then he submitted the image back, and I was like, "You kept the bunny ears. I didn't think you would."
Yeah, so gotta get those sensor suites.
That tickled me quite a bit.
Hell yeah.
I don't even know if I have some of those sketches anymore. Some of them were rough, but it's good times.
I mean, everything's gonna start somewhere, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Rough sketches get refined and refined and refined, and then you have awesome artwork at the end.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, that's random here. We used to have this amazing colorist that I loved. She was great. I know that she had some hardship during COVID, so unfortunately, we had to stop using her because she had just family troubles. Again, a kind of a weird situation where I was looking for like some of her previous work, and she had done a whole bunch of Aristea artwork.
Sure.
And I was like, how am I keep finding you people? I mean, it's cool. I love it, and she was great. I really missed working with her, but yeah, that was just really funny. Someone's like, "Yeah, this is what I've done." I'm like, I know what that is.
Yeah,
that is pretty cool.
That. So,
and I mean, obviously, it means that you're finding the right people to get the right aesthetic for what you were going for.
I mean, it's trial and error. It's a lot of messaging 20 people and hearing back from 2. So unfortunately, it's not a perfect thing. But
sure.
We try. So and then sometimes when it comes to kind of developing any sort of IP or whatever you're doing, it has its own evolution in the same way that Infinity has, where you start with what you have access to or what you can do, and then you kind of build upon that. And you may look back at something you've done 10 years ago and go, what do you do with this? Do we keep it? Do we chuck it?
Sure. Yeah, and speaking of the process here, because it sounds like it's been kind of a slow burn project. What would you say have been some of the more challenging aspects of getting to, back of the napkin sort of ideas to here you are ready to launch a product?
I mean, I'm just going to be honest, like from any creative point of view, the biggest hurdle is money.
Sure.
I know that sounds very, trite and almost like duh, but it is such a big hurdle, and I feel like it's such a big hurdle, unfortunately, for anyone that's trying to do creative things. Is they're just like like time or money, right? But is the one issue that I had from the start from a lot of this is what can I afford? What can I do myself? What can I afford? What can we do kind of internally within quote unquote our own team? And we've expanded that so much because connections or access to different resources, sometimes it is like a snowball. It's unfortunately for us, we had the foolish decision to try and do film first.
Sure.
Which is very expensive.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like it's comical the difference between the cost of one issue of Breeze compared to Ascendance. The short film was like a 23-minute short film or something. Like astronomically different prices. We could probably do like 8 issues of Breeze for one Ascendance.
Sure.
and we have way less stress.
Yeah.
So yeah, we unfortunately hit a big hurdle. One of the gentlemen that I work very closely with, he came to me in the end of 2019 and was like, we need to like do a full proper movie. And I said, heck yes. And we got a bunch of investors, and we had a sizable budget, and we had a fun script, and we were going forward, and we were doing some casting. We had locations. It was cool. We were really excited. And I remember having a Zoom call, if you will. We were meeting with people because we had people from all over the world involved. And I remember asking, and I said, "Hey, you guys heard of this COVID thing?" And one of the producers said, "Nah, that won't affect us." And then like 4 days later, the market tanked. And then like 4 days after that, quarantines happened, and everything died in terms of that production. Like all the momentum was gone, the investors were gone, everything was gone, and it was such like a massive blow that I said, like just having put so much work into it just for literally like the wind, it felt like just take it away. It's like we can't do that again. It just doesn't feel worth it. So we shifted gears. We started looking towards fiction. We started pursuing other avenues, and we had a big discussion in terms of like what should we do next? What should be a larger thing? And a comic became the next big thing that we could do. That could be a product that we could actually release. So it's been a long adventure. I mean, I've been working on Dawnward itself for probably about 20 years, in some capacity or another. And yeah, it itself, any idea has to change, it has to grow, it has to mature. And as I said about the kid that played too much inside by himself, like, you do need to socialize it with people. I think that happens to a lot of creatives when they have really good ideas, is they don't kind of let it walk. They don't let it grow up like as it should. It stays in that same cocoon where it started. And you also realize as you get older how much like world, life, people, everything is so gray and complicated and intermingled, and like that, taking those elements and kind of weaving them into the story that you've created it's like a huge thing. It really helps breathe more life into it. Or if you even taking a moment to realize something was already inadvertently there that you didn't plan on, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. So to come back to your question, Devin, it's a long process.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, it sounds like it'll be a really cool story, and so I'll definitely pick up a copy because it looks really cool, and I'm excited to see where that goes. And I'm a sucker for RPGs, so I'm excited to see if that kind of comes to fruition at some point.
I mean, I'm a sucker for comic books, so.
I mean, you brought up Diamond, so that was straight like nobody was ready for that. Ian was like, "What?" Knowledge.
Well, I've been seeing just interesting things in like the indie comic market without that like stranglehold present. There's so many cool things popping out with just especially internet Kickstarter direct to consumer stuff that just really wasn't possible when everything was so locked into that one distribution company.
I mean, it for all the the negatives people can bring up about like the internet, it is cool how much it's opened the doors for smaller creatives to kind of explore just what they can do.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. And allows some reach that just, obviously wouldn't be possible otherwise. But on the other hand, there's so much content that I feel like it can be difficult to really set yourself apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a challenge. But yeah, so just because, Ian loves his animals, for like 15 years I had a very beloved Siamese, and she is now immortalized in the comic as a cyborg cat. So
Hell
adorable.
yeah.
Yep. So she gets to forever live on. Do, 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 do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's unique. We got cyborg cats, bitches. What's up?
Boom.
We have a concept where, people love companionship, cute things, and technology. So let's smash them all together.
Yeah.
And some people are like, hey, what if some people jury rig Teslas to do crazy stuff. What if I jury rig your cat to do crazy shit like hack the internet?
Perfect. I'm excited to see that come up.
In the RPG, there was a session where they fought this, big scary. I think it was this big scary guy, and one of the players turns and is just like, "Suck it," and just shoots him in the face with a grenade launcher. Doesn't announce this to the party, mind you. So there's a dude in melee, another PC in melee with the boss, and just blows up their friend. Just blows him. I think the boss was okay, but the PC was just devastated, like all over the hallway. So they're running away, and the hacker of the group scoops up the cyber brain because they're like, "Oh right, you were like fully cybernetic. I can actually take this." So they're running with it, and so I want to say it was like the end of the next session. The dude who got blown up was like, "You guys like fucking do something with me, because I'd like to play, and you're just running around with my brain." And so the next session, they went into this like evil person's lair or whatever, and they were using like these biomechanical like kind of cyborg cats as like spies. They would send them throughout the city, and they were tethered to them, and that's how they could do everything. And so they were like, "Fuck it, you wanted a body?" And they downloaded the player into the cat. And so for the next few sessions, the hacker was running around with this cat that was like, "Fuck you! Why am I a cat?"
At least he took it to be a melee specialist.
Yeah. I mean,
so
it's a good resolution for the Cyberpunk equivalent of I cast Fireball.
So in a story planning meeting for the comic, I brought up this, and everybody on the other side went, "Hey, you need to put that in there. That has to happen in your story."
Amazing.
So
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. What is the end date for the Kickstarter so that people know when they have?
Yeah, for sure. So it is slated to end on Sunday, April 13th.
There we go. You heard it here, folks. So as of recording, it's just under 2 weeks.
So I mean, we're well on the way there. So jump on, get on board while there's still time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. It seems like it'll be cool. I hope that it goes really well for all of you guys. One last thing on my end is, so you have a number of Dawnward short films. Where does Breeze kind of slot in compared to those?
In terms of the timeline?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, Breeze is a really easy way for people to kind of enter into. There's not a lot of baggage that ties them into anything. It's a self-contained story. And so you can easily read Breeze, get involved with Breeze, and then I've seen the short films, or after reading Breeze, go see the short films, and you're not going to lose anything from either end.
Sure.
It may enrich your viewing of the short films, it may enrich your reading of Breeze, but either way, they're still independent enough that nothing in the overarching universe is going to be lost on you.
Cool.
So,
yeah, sounds really promising.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that sounds great. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been really cool to chat about Dawnward and to shoot the breeze.
Ooh, but
Haha. That sounds awesome. Like I said, I definitely want to pick up one. And yeah, we'll have the links available in the show notes so that you can see the Dawnward Universe YouTube channel. You can get to the Breeze Kickstarter. Remember that the end date is April 13th. So if you want to support this super cool project, that's your deadline. So make sure you hop on that. But yeah, any kind of final nuggets of interest or any other last minute things you'd like to add before we break, Mike?
No, I appreciate your time. I appreciate anyone that's listening. Yeah, if you would if it Breeze sounds fun to you, or if you just want to support kind of independent comics or independent storytelling, yeah, just jump on. For pretty much the cost of a cup of coffee, you can get a copy of it in the digital format. It's a little more if you want to go in print. Um, yeah, we just really want to kind of share fun, cool stories with people, and we hope that we kind of keep that drive in the creative space and the gaming space and the infinity space just kind of alive and going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again. And for those listening, I mean, feel free to give us some feedback. I know this is outside of kind of the normal purview of what we cover, but if you are interested in these kind of extra episodes periodically, we'd love to hear about that and see if there's other stuff that you might be interested in that we can talk about every so often. All right. So thank you again for listening. We'd love to hear any feedback you have on that. And we'll see you again soon for more Infinity content.